this is the bit, isn't it? That confuses me. It's like, did we choose to come here to get this sorted out, or is this just seems a little unfair, doesn't it? That you know, we seem to be here, and there's this parasite messing up our experience.
And you know, I know in my own life, the times that I've made major changes, it was like it became more painful not to change than to change. That was when I made big changes.
You know, it's this whole ridiculous narrative of it's an unsafe world. There's not enough for you. It's scary. Everyone's out to get you, and clearly the old civilization was completely the opposite to that. It was all about empowerment, like literally.
Cosmic resonance, I think they called that one, or
cosmic resonance. That's a better name.
Real science, you can actually produce free electricity, and this is part of what Tesla was doing, is the differential between the top of the spire to the ground actually creates an electrical differential that you then connect to another wire that goes into the ground, your grounding. Put that into the third phase in your circuit, and then you have a bell ringing circuit, and that actually produces plasma electricity out of the air. It's real technology. These things actually function producing electricity. It's crazy.
The movies are the truth and the news is the lies. They've completely flipped it.
You know, when you look at everything with new eyes and you come across information like she was born into a very wealthy family with elite connections, you know, it means something very different now to me than it would have even a few years ago. And it's our free will that they've really also messed with, because we've been lied to and we react based on lies. Just getting their independence and end up in civil wars for 20, 30 years happens a lot.
Because we keep choosing to pick up the gun and use it on ourselves instead of building and uniting and accepting that we are one people, one spirit, one harmony, on one plane that together, united, can achieve anything we dream of.
So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult?
And then give them pieces of information that they will then pursue themselves and look into, and then they'll wake themselves up.
I was going to mention it's the whole red pill, blue pill of the Matrix. I mean, that of the movie. And you can consider that movie as a documentary because they're telling us something about what's happening here. So do you want to, wake up, or do you want to just keep going along because the change is too difficult? Wake up.
Hello, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. We are live with a Weekend at Burnine's, ending the weekend nerd out session with the amazing quattro of Falcon Space Mark Sokol, who was just on Tesla Tech channel. Amazing. Jeremiah of Join the Technicians, and Mike of Faraday Research. I will let you guys each give a quick little intro. Mike, we'll let you start first, because you've been doing these carbon batteries and having quite the success with them, and then Jeremiah's also reproduced them.
Yep. So, I posted quite a few videos already on my carbon graphite batteries, and right now I have 35 LEDs lit up. And I got 5 cells hooked up in parallel, and they're producing anywhere from 1.4 to 1.6 volts each. And I could even charge up super caps with them. I was charging these guys up as well as running the lights. So I'm just working on the science of that and trying to come up with new novel ideas of producing power. So that's where I'm at.
Very nice. Very nice.
Hey, everyone. Guess I'm supposed to talk next. I'm over here in Hawthorne, New Jersey, Falcon Space Labs, and we're looking on how to spend energy to make thrust or warp drive, anti-gravity, inertial mass cancellation. We got the control room for the lab behind me here. Faraday cages on the other side of this wall. And we're just running different types of experiments here. Trying to keep the science going.
That's dope. One thing Jeremy's been doing, and Jeremiah, you've really liked it, is his random number dice test.
I think that's a fantastic test. If he's going to find somebody one of these days, I mean, what a perfect opportunity to offer that chance.
But also, we should try like a random generator within a Faraday cage or something like that, because I remember that's a huge aspect of it. And
well, I think that once he finds somebody that can detect it without a Faraday cage and get it right, then he can go on to more complicated tests like what is the shielding of a non-local telepathic phenomena. But before he gets to that point, why make it harder for anybody trying to chime in on what the dice roll is going to end up being, right?
We need to get Uri Geller on that show. Try to like get everyone's consciousness to ask for all sixes or something. That would be sick.
Sorry, Jeremy or Jeremiah, give you your chance. Do you want to show on screen now your remake?
Nah, not really. I have very little to say. Quite frankly, I'm working on projects that are capable of fitting on the bench top and using low power, and they have huge implications across the industry. The best way I can probably put it out there is the less I say, the better off chances will be for getting this stuff out there, and let y'all do the work as far as release, and I will do the lab work and get the data to prove it ahead of time, and my name won't likely be associated with it. So that's really all I have to say. On to you, Mike.
My turn now. Yeah. What was going to say? Oh yeah, talking about the dice tests. I've been actually dabbling with some of the stuff that Russel Targ was doing. I did a couple of these remote viewing tests myself. And actually, I surprised myself on how accurate I was. And I actually have one of his training tools. It's an app you can actually get for your iPhone or your Android. It's called the ESP Trainer. It was actually developed by Russel Targ, and I believe Ingo Swann was involved in it, and the other guy, I'm trying to remember his name, Pat something. He was another psychic, but they were developing this app back way before the cell phone started. They actually had a machine that did like training exercises for your mind, and they actually had a group there that was actually predicting the stock market, and they actually made the news. They were able to pick a whole bunch of stocks that were going to go up, and quite a few that were going to go down, and they had something like a 90% accuracy rating on their picks of their stocks by doing remote viewing. So it was pretty interesting.
That is.
There's actually a good movie. It's called Third Eye Spies, and it's basically kind of a documentary of Russel Targ in his life and how he got involved in this project back in the late 60s, early 70s with Ingo Swann and a few other guys. Uri Geller was one of them. And actually the CIA found out about him, and he was actually kicked out of the program and sent back to Israel because of national security issues, because they were getting into some sensitive stuff. So yeah, it's quite a story. It's actually a really good movie to watch. I believe it's on Amazon Prime right now. It's called Third Eye Spies.
Damn Amazon. Mike, do you mind? Are you able to show off the water machine right now and just give us a brief description of parts lists and whatnot? Because we've had a few viewers interested. And were you also saying that you were weighing the water to be 20% heavier?
Yeah. approximately 20%. Just bear with me here for a second. It's my so this is the machine here. I believe this is a 5-gallon. It's a brewer's tank that you use for brewing beer. So I got the water filter. The pump is right at the bottom, and this setup here is where I have neodymium magnets. North poles facing in. The water passes through that field, goes through this coil. It's a 2-stage coil, and I got 2 different frequencies with a piezoelectric transducer on each side. And I got that hooked up to my signal generator. One's putting out 528 hertz pulsed, 12 volts at a 50% duty cycle. And channel 2 is 432 hertz at 50% duty cycle at 12 volts. So I got those signals basically resonating inside the tank, and I got the water in there, and it's just circulating. So it goes through those 3 chambers, and it just, you spin it for about 7 days, and then it's ready to drink. And I did take a regular, say, tap water, and I weigh it compared the same to this water. It's about 20% difference. It's 20% heavier. And you could take, 2 waters, drink one, and then you drink the other, and you can really tell the difference between the water. There's a distinctive, consistency or viscosity of the water. It's heavier. It's just heavier.
Yeah,
so,
and like we had mentioned before, 20% is a significant difference between the two.
It is.
That's enough for any cheap scale off the shelf to detect.
So
you don't have to have special equipment to tell that this water is different than, say, by volume normal water.
Oh, you could tell the difference between this water and any other water you drink. You can tell right away. Second it hits your mouth, you can feel the difference just by taste and just the way it feels, right, compared to regular tap water. Now, I was borderline with Crohn's disease, and a friend of mine was building these machines for over 20 years. He has a very large one that's being tested at the University of Guelph, just outside of Toronto. And he told me about this water. I never heard of it before. And he asked me a few questions, and he goes, "You're borderline Crohn's, aren't you?" And I go, "Well, I've never gone to the doctor for it." And he goes, "Well, from what you've told me about your health, you're borderline Crohn's." So he started giving me some of this water. I would say within the first 60 days, I had no more problems. All my stomach problems were gone, completely gone. If I get an upset stomach, I just have half a cup of water, boom, it's gone within a minute, less than a minute. And any indigestion problems, or I'm feeling sick or whatever, just take the water and I feel better within an hour. I feel, I've noticed a huge improvement in my health. So, yeah.
I've definitely heard very similar testimonials in lots of people that do the magnetic and structured water. But it does fascinate me, that 20% and doing the weighing of it. And I'm going to have to do the same thing, because I've noticed in a lot of my electrolysis reactions that it seems like it is producing that heavy water, like the isotope of it.
I asked my
if you're just with frequency though, and not actually through electrolysis, that's quite,
like I asked my friend when he initially told me to start taking the water. I go, "Well, how about the placebo effect?" He goes, "Well, that wears off in about a week." But he says you'll really notice it about 2 to 3 months down the road. If you take it every day, once in the morning, once before you go to bed, slowly you're going to feel the difference. And I did. Like, all my stomach issues are completely gone. And now it's over 2 years later, and I have very rarely have a flare up or problems, right? So yeah, overall good health. It's helped me out. So now the magnets. A lot of people ask me what the magnets do. It seems like what it does, it neutralizes any of the frequencies that could be embedded in the water itself. And then I reprogram the water with the piezoelectric transducers to get it back to that normal frequency of 528 hertz and 432 hertz. And they've done studies at MIT showing that they can actually store data in water. So if the water is retaining this RF signal in the water, obviously, water is something, we should be studying a lot more of, because you don't have water, you don't have life on the planet, period. So yeah.
Sorry, I was just commenting there. They're sharing our different channels in the live chat with the viewers. So yeah, we'll have to put together a parts list, and I'm gonna build one of your water machines here as well, so we can replicate it.
Yeah, like they don't have to be huge; they can be quite small. One feature that I didn't show you, I'm doing another cycle, but it's spinning the water in a vortex, so you get that tornado effect. That's also a big part of the water implosion, and I think that actually changes the water. I notice if I don't do the implosion of it, the water doesn't get that heavy feeling. So when you get that consistent tornado effect in the water, that's where the implosion happens. So obviously something at a molecular level, it's changing when that process is happening, the vortex. So
yeah,
Schauberger
Dan
was
Minter
working
goes
on it.
into that a lot with his magnetic water imploder. I believe
Yeah.
we've talked about that before. So what I have displayed here are a couple of these triple solenoid mono or nano coated capacitors that I have suspended in two separate areas or levels of these the electrolyte, just salt water, but then monoatomic at the bottom, and they've been sealed for over these ones. I guess are about a year now, but they're still doing active electrolysis within the sealed jars and producing both the monoatomic, but also you'll see hydrogen bubbles every so often go off the bottom, and how it's then doing that is through producing a current from the differential that is lasting within the jars for a very long time, and potential source of battery power.
Now you're building up hydrogen in those bottles and you have them sealed. Doesn't it create so much pressure it blows the top off it?
I was thinking and worried about that at first, but it seems that it's creating some sort of self-sufficient reaction where it then at the top reacts with the metal and then creates the monoatomic that then falls to the bottom. So it's like a recycling or something.
Yeah.
It's blown my mind that they've never done that. And I've tested the tops and it's like seemed like they would get a bit. And then
how about the hydrogen getting infused into the monoatomic material?
Yeah, that's definitely kind of what I was trying to say, and you gave a much better description of that.
Yeah, because you would think that it would dissipate off the top and create some kind of a pressure there. But if you got two reactant materials inside the plasma or in the water, then that hydrogen is now fusing itself to the anatomy of your test subjects inside.
I actually have Wally Tango Foxtrot had it was with the monoatomic or diatomic aluminum that when I took the the plasma state stuff from the bottom and sealed it in a jar. When it was bubbling the hydrogen up for a couple months afterwards, and there was no copper circuits. It was just sparkles in every single bubble as it would go up, just tiny little flashes of light, and it blew my mind.
Really?
Yeah, but I do have a video of it on one of my devices. I will.
Well, if that's happening, then obviously there is some kind of energy exchange going on. If you're getting photon light from the reactions inside the bottle, that means there's a transfer of energy, whatever form it is, from one medium to another. That would explain why you're seeing some kind of photonic light being emitted from it. That means there is some kind of electrical component happening inside. If you get, the plasma and it's at a state of superconductivity and it goes into an area where there's a gap in that conductivity, that's where the photonic light and that energy transfer, almost like through like a dielectric, right?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Because the consistency of your plasma varies. It's not a consistent flow of plasma throughout the jar.
Yeah.
So you're going to have areas of high concentration and areas of low concentration. So the energy, if it's going to flash over, it's going to flash over from the area of high concentration to the area of low concentration. That's just standard science. So if that's happening, I could see some kind of electrical transfer or photon light being emitted from that. So yeah, you could be having some pretty interesting things going on in there.
Yeah, another cool part I'm trying to show right now. It kind of fell apart as I moved the jar, but the stalactite and stalagmite self-organization that happens out of these monoatomic plasmoids is quite fascinating. And in the bottom of this one, it started to oxidize, turn a little bit bluey green, but when it was forming, so this has been sealed for about a year, I'd say. And for the first 6 months, it was just producing the pure white monoatomic, and then it started just randomly. One day I looked at it, and it had all just oxidized, and it hasn't opened. Nothing's changed.
Yeah.
And it just the weirdest things happen with this stuff.
Yeah.
This one's been sealed probably for about 2 years. There's zinc and copper coils, but they're all connected to each other. Thus all producing a differential and a small current within it. And
I got a question for you. Have you ever taken any of that plasma out and actually hit it with a high voltage?
I have yet to. Supposedly, if you do that, like in a microwave, you'll get a metal, like it'll solidify back into new metals. According to Dan Winters and Nassim Haramein's research and some others. But I have yet to do so because it is cold fusion. There's the possibilities of radiation, and why there's the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project instead of the Martin Fleischmann Continued Cold Fusion Project is that once you start going with these higher voltages and whatnot, the reactions you're actually yourself getting exposed to
X-rays or whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Mark, are you still there? Do you want to show a couple things off of while you're at the lab, or should I posted the link to your interview earlier. Oh, there he is.
Hey, I'm here. Yeah, covered by your logo for a second. Yeah, we're just working on lots of stuff here at the lab. We've been working on the Alzaphon experiment recently, which is electron paramagnetic resonance, creating dynamic nuclear orientation, trying to orient subatomic particle spins. and use that for gravity shielding and inertial mass cancellation or shielding. Behind me is the equipment we're working with. You can see we got some high voltage on this rack. Over here we have a signal generator and amplifier, and on this rack over here we have spectrum analyzer, and below it is the power supply for the large electromagnet we have behind us inside of the Faraday cage, which is on the other side of this wall.
Nice. That's a lot. That's a lot of good equipment.
Yeah. Well, we need some more engineers here and some more great ideas of how to use all this equipment. And hopefully in the coming months, we're going to get the team back together and working on some new experiments. Also, the gyroscope contraption that we're working on, basically gyroscopes that are swinging back and forth, that's almost complete. We're still working on a couple tweaks with the software. Tom Butler has been playing around with that, has it mostly figured out. Burnt out a couple motors on the way, but we're getting pretty close there.
Right? It's like gotta blow a few fuses and motors to get there along the way always. And just for a simple demonstration of why gyroscopic motion is so important with anti-gravity or gravity, and to those that, oh man, there's half the community out there that's just so lost in conspiracy land. They're like, gravity doesn't even exist. Okay, there's real things called G-forces, gravity force. And when you have your little fidget spinner and you have one that doesn't have the ball bearings on the outside, just in the center, so only one ball bearing, you spin it, you feel a little bit, but not as much. But when you have the ones that have the ball bearing on the outside as well as the inside, you literally, it's stuck in a place where it takes more force to move it. You're initially stuck, and that is gravitational force. That's G force, and that's
I don't know that's
rotational inertia, I guess.
Angular momentum, kind of sticks it in place. It's the same reason why riding a bike while you're not falling over is because the inertia of the wheel as it's spinning is changing so quickly that it sort of equalizes itself out. So if you want to tilt it this way, but it's, while you're tilting it, the tire is moving. So that movement gets transferred over there. So it pulls it back to its original point. That's sort of the concept of what happens with a gyroscope. And when you look at subatomic particles, they're basically electromagnetic energy spun in on themselves. So you've got little gyroscopes over there, and they're not just spinning on one flat plane. They're also the axis of rotation is also spinning, and that can be an explanation as to why there is inertial mass in the first place. Where does matter get its mass from? One way of thinking of it is that the rotation of the subatomic particles, the energy spinning around, which is the particle, in order to move that in any which direction, because there's so many spins going on simultaneously, you're going to have to actually change its spin, and that's where your that's where your inertia comes from. That's where your momentum comes from. And if you're able to orient all the spins so that they're all spinning on a flat plane, that they're not wobbling.
Three planes of inertial dimension, essentially.
If you got them all spinning so that they're on a flat plane, all spinning together, then theoretically you should be free to move an object without the constraints of inertia and gravity as well.
As David Soretta and Joseph P. Farrell both say, it's a wave within a wave within a wave, or a bubble within a bubble within a bubble, essentially.
Yeah, that's what subatomic particles are. They're just waves of energy spinning in on themselves in many different directions simultaneously, all coupled together into this glob of energy that we call an atom. So why is there inertia, like the gentleman just asked in the comments? Because whenever you move something, you're changing its spin. So the energy is getting transferred actually to the spin of the subatomic particles.
Right, and it's
But that doesn't happen. That only happens if the spins are incoherent and if they're going in many different directions.
Fractal coherence.
If they're
or quantum coherence.
Yeah, if we get quantum coherence where they're all spinning together, you should be able to move it along the spin and axes of the subatomic particles without any restraints of inertia.
Bernie, I got to head out for the night. I got to be up early.
Fair enough, Mike. Yeah, so before you go, Mike, if you can do me a favor before our next stream, but get a materials list of the basic water machine as well as for the batteries. I guess you've already pretty much shown in your video and whatnot. But yeah, just parts list, I guess.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot, guys.
Take care, Mike.
Okay, take care. Have a good one.
Love, my friend.
Bye.
Sparky asked a great question. If making coherent matter, so if we're making coherent matter, how do we cancel inertia? That is how you cancel inertia, by making matter coherent. Inertia can only, or mass for that instance, can only hold on to objects, can only restrain objects if the spin is going to change. Like when you pick up your fidget spinner again and you spin it, you're free to move it along its plane and axis. But as soon as you start wobbling it around a lot as you're spinning it,
you lose the coherence.
And then try to move that as it was wobbling. It would be very difficult to do in your hand. Then you'll see that the spin itself will change. And there's many different spins going on. There's the spin of the fidget spinner itself, and then there's the spin of the axes that needs to happen as well. And then you can have a spin on top of that. You can have a spin within a spin within a spin. And when you change when you move something that's spinning in many different directions around, those spins would have to change. So throwing a baseball, you're actually changing the subatomic particle spins, and that's where the inertial energy or the momentum is stored. It's going into those subatomic particle spins. But that can only happen if there's lots of spins going on. If they're all spinning on a equal plane, then it will be free only along its plane and axis.
Sorry, I was just looking up here a couple of videos of a couple similar related experiments of what we're kind of talking about, but they're supposed over bounced wheels or gravity wheels or whatnot. Just a couple I'd like to show that fascinate me because they're the same as Da Vinci's drawings, so they look essentially like Da Vinci blueprints, only in a 3D mechanical sense of engineering. But it's from a Chinese channel.
Oh, you'll have to show me a video or a picture of that. I'm not really sure what
you're talking about. That's sorry. That's what I'm looking up right now. But yes, sorry. While I get that ready, we'll do a quick 5-minute intermission, and I'll play a part of the Science of Sound series that we did last week with Ominous beatboxing on it, so we can have a quick bathroom break and get a couple things ready for everyone.
How many people are watching us right now? Bernie, you're muted.
It's last time it was saying 2, and then there was like 40 people in the chat room. But yeah, we're just on my channel right now. On my Facebook, my Twitter, and my YouTube.
Gotta hit them all.
Sorry, I'm having lag issues. Mark, do you got a video you want to share at all, or Jeremiah there that can share something? I gotta reboot my laptop here.
But first, just a quick word, a quick reminder about our YouTube memberships here.
It's basically a pulling force that pulls large objects together. It's one of the 4 known forces in nature. There's gravity. Is there a graviton? We're not really sure about that. We haven't found a particle that is associated with gravity. It extends to infinity. Next force is electromagnetism, which is associated with the photon, with the electron. Those 2 forces work in tandem. When you have electricity flowing, you have magnetism. When you have magnetism and it's changing, you have electricity. That's how motor generators work. Next force is the weak nuclear force, which is shown with the W and Z boson. It extends less than the diameter of a proton. So these are forces that are within the atom. And basically, as these forces of nature get smaller and smaller, they also get stronger and stronger. And then there's the strong force, which is really in the center of the atom, and that's what holds things together. And by its name, strong force, it's the strongest of the 4 forces. There may be some other forces, which we can get into in a little bit, but these are the 4 known, and this is straight up, what you'd learn in any physics class. Gravity is a very weak force. which is strange because it's what's holding us down to the planet. But I mean, think about it, it is very, very weak in comparison to the other forces, the physical force that are responsible for the interactions that occur between bits of matter and any other piece of matter. So they're always pulling together. We've never seen gravity push apart, or what you think of as anti-gravity. We've never actually observed that. Also, force of gravity does not depend on temperature or charge or any other attribute that we can put to it. Spin something up, you high temperature, very low temperature objects, they attract each other equally. It's only associated with the mass of the object that will equal the gravitational force. And there's a gravitational constant to a certain amount of matter equals X amount of force. It weakens with the square of the radius. So farther out, every doubling of distance, you have a weakening of the gravitic force, and it is 10 to the negative 38 times the strength of the strong force. So it's really down there in the zeros, past the decimal point when you're comparing it with the strong force of nature. Basics of gravity. Copernicus first published his theory of heliocentricity in 1543. Heliocentricity means that the sun is the center of the universe, or they thought at the time, or the solar system at least. And that was called heresy at the time, because the church was in charge of all thought. John Kepler first described the laws of planetary motion in the early 1600s. More heresy. Isaac Newton published his the universal law of gravitation in 1686. That was some more heresy. Gravity follows inverse square relationship with force and distance. Like I said before, farther you go out, drops off by the square. First measurement of gravitational force was by Henry Cavendish in the 1790s. We all know it's roughly 9.8 meters per second, meaning that every second an object is falling toward Earth, it is accelerating at 9.8 meters faster. Take into account air resistance, you eventually come to an equilibrium that is the free fall velocity. Okay, so Newton's theory of gravity, it's explained over here in this equation. F on the left is the total force that you're going to experience. G is the gravitational constant, which F needs to be calculated later. And then you have the mass of one object, the mass of the second object. R is the distance between the objects. This is a great explanation and mathematical a mathematical way of getting satellites into space, launching things around the moon, but it lacks an explanation for the exact rate of Mercury's perihelion precession. And what we mean by that is Mercury is rotating around the sun, and every year it has a perihelion. Every Mercury year it has perihelion, which is the point where Mercury is the closest to the sun. Mercury's perihelion is not constant. Earth's perihelion is around January 4th, but Mercury's keeps on changing. And why that was, they didn't know at the time. They know that probably the amount of observations of Mercury at the time that Newton put together this theory. Theory of general relativity came together with Albert Einstein, of course, in the early 20th century. He looks at it in a different way. Gravity is a deformation of space-time. It's an apparent force. But the math really breaks down to the same equation Newton got plus this one over here. And using this equation, adding it into Newton's equations, you're able to calculate the correct orbit of Mercury's perihelion precession. The theory also correctly stated that electromagnetic waves would be affected by gravity, which is why light, which is an electromagnetic wave, bends around the sun. So there was that famous experiment where light was found to be bending around the sun during an eclipse, when we were able to see stars behind the sun, and everyone, screamed that Einstein was probably right about that, but they didn't look at everything else that was going on there in his theory. But basically, his math does break down to the same equation Newton got, just plus one extra piece of math. It's also worth noting that by the time Einstein came up with the theory of general relativity, the perihelion precession of Mercury was already known. There was observations going back about a century and a half, so there was some calculation of exactly what was happening. So you were able to surmise a fix for the equation to figure out what was happening with Mercury's perihelion precession. This equation only it usually equals to 0 if any object is not very massive, or the distance is pretty far out, because you see R3 over here in the denominator. That's the distance of the planet from the sun, or from a large object, and that would usually equal to 0. Another large component of Mercury's perihelion precession is actually Venus and Earth tugging on it. So those are also components, things that change up the equation as well. Actually, they're much larger contributions. Tesla had a dynamic theory of gravity. It was never really published, but he claimed to have a complete dynamic theory of gravity that would put an end to idle speculation and false conceptions as to that of curved space. Theory was developed initially between 1892 and 1894, during the period when he was conducting experiments using high frequency and high potential electromagnetism, which is interesting. We're going to get back to that in a second, or in a little bit, because those are the kind of experiments we are working on here, and some things that have been postulated as creating anti-gravity or inertial mass cancellation. Tesla's theory was to explain gravity using electrodynamics. He also famously stated, there's no energy in matter other than that received from the environment. Tesla did believe in an ether. And the Wikipedia page for Tesla's dynamic theory of gravity has been taken down. Again, it has never been published. I think he died before he was able to publish it. So there's that. Quantum theory of gravity is, I think this was brought up with Todd DeCiato, that particles are, and I think Jeremiah Popp also chimed in on this theory as well. Particles are vibrations in the 0-point field that bounce in and out of existence. They're basically these little direct particles that are just vibrations in the ether. Now, large quantities of particles bouncing against the 0-point field cause the 0-point field to become more elastic and less coherent. So think of it as a whole bunch of rubber bands going in all directions, and when you push against them, then they bounce back and forth, and that's where your particle is. So when you have lots of particles, the rubber bands in that area would be much more stretched, right? So a ball bouncing between two plates is a good analogy. Like, think of a ball bouncing between these two rubber bands, and then there's a spot where the rubber bands are more flexible. They would always want to go toward their lowest energy state, falling toward the Earth. So that's a good analogy. Everything wants to go to its lowest energy state. Gravity theory: all particles are electromagnetic fields of different shapes, sizes, directions, and spins. Particles radiate an electromagnetic field that spreads to infinity in different directions, orientations, and spins. The intensity of that field is what dictates the particle's mass. Since all matter is interconnected and nature likes to achieve equilibrium, electrogravity is the result. There was going to be a video after this, but we weren't able to load it. showing how the surface tension of water is a good analogy of that. Water in outer space, it forms a sphere, the way planets are. So this is just another way of looking at matter and connecting matter and electromagnetism. We already know that matter and energy are one. That's what E equals mc squared taught us. So this is just another way of looking at it, that they're just different types of spins, and their energy is what dictates their mass. So electrogravity and quantum theory of gravity disagree with general relativity about space-time curvature. They agree with special relativity and explanation for gravity while unifying all the forces. Explain why light is affected by gravity. And they both offer ways to affect gravity or create artificial gravity. And I will get into that in a moment. So what is anti-gravity? Well, the term
To find out, you're going to have to watch the rest of that presentation over on Tesla Tech YouTube, and I'm posting the link in the chat. Jeremiah, Mark, not sure if you guys are still here. In the background there, working on your different projects, I'm assuming. If you are, something I would like to discuss is probably for another time, but we can get into is a higher dimensional unified theory of geometry and harmonics, essentially kind of like Plato's spheres. And I believe the ancients did come up with a geometric based, the Platonic solids and Pythagoras harmony of the spheres, I believe, is what is encoded in these lost ancient teachings. But the hydrogen wave function that I have up right now is a pretty good illustration of dimensional time space between different planes of, I guess, dimensional existence. But it's quite fascinating, the hydrogen wave function. And if you look at where the electrons supposedly are in their orbitals, and then the color and energy of them, it's, well, it definitely resonates with me. And then here's one of an electron cloud, and another image taken. And it's like these are sacred geometric shapes, but they're also the inner working geometries of our universe. And what I have up on screen here is the alchemical symbols, but there's the three principles. On the left, the sulfur, salt, and mercury. I believe the salt is your electrolysis jar, or your electrolyte jar. Your sulfur is your positive anode, and your mercury is your negative cathode. And the four elements: fire, well, that's your fourth state, that's plasma. Air, that's a gas, that's your third state. Water, that's a liquid, so that's your second state. Earth, that's a solid, that's your first. And then it says plus the elements. Can't see it right now on there because my camera's not properly, but it's the periodic table of elements. And the ancient alchemist and the alchemical language literally has an entire symbol pictographic language of the alchemical, or the periodic table. And I've come to realize with the planets and metals, the sun, gold, well, that looks like the right hand rule of your electromagnetic current. And it goes along with the orbits of these planets, and then the electromagnetic properties and gravitational of the giant masses upon each other, and thus will affect these transmutational states through this cold fusion process. Edleed Scallan's Coral Castle and his writings of magnetic current go huge into explaining this as well. And yeah, it's going to be a multi-part series to try to explain this all. But it's coming together slowly and surely. And here's another commonly used array of element symbols of alchemy, and that looks like a circuit simulation, really, geometries, and it's just so much more advanced than we were ever led to believe. And what I have up now is a bunch of different geometrical shapes and dimensions, combining Walter Russell's with different cymatic resonances and alchemy and Isaac Newton's light work. It's a giant work in process, but hopefully we will get a unified geometric theory at some point out of this. Also, I believe this is another one of hydrogen wave function, or just photon wave function, maybe. And light, there's so much more to light and sound and color than what we currently try to accept or explain. Also, geometry. They are the building blocks of our universe, and there's just so much ancient wisdom and knowledge out there of people and cultures and societies that have had this and figured it out and been far more advanced than we have over the millennia. Also, Robert Moon. If Mark or Jeremiah, if either of you have ever heard of Robert Moon, if you haven't, he was one of the leading nuclear chemists, I believe, advanced physical. 1911 to 1989. I believe he was either at Yale, Harvard, or MIT, but he put together a oh man, I need you guys for the proper scientific explanation, but two particles bonding together, quantum locking essentially, but it's particle locking, the duality. I'm butchering trying to explain it, but basically it would explain element 115 and how isotopes of it would be able to become stable in our lesser dense third dimensional planet existence. But yeah, nobody's coming back. Got a few people watching, so maybe this time the science of sound will work. Or VE project.
Bernie, I gotta go. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, no worries, Mark. No worries. We'll do this again sometime. Thank you for everything. You have a good one. Jeremiah, you still there, brother? Well, when you come back, we will talk about some batteries and hopefully some of that monoatomic bismuth or diatomic, you believe. What can I play in the meantime? Will it work this time? Oh. Here we go. Experiencing technical difficulties. Thank you for bearing with us. Come on. And mysteriously, the Science of Sound episode 3 disappeared off of Autodidactic channel when it had 5,000 views in just 2.5 days. So not sure what happened there. It also disappeared off Alien Scientist channel, but I think he deleted it because he only joined in halfway, and it had about 1,200 views on his channel before it deleted, and now it's once again not playing for us.
Interesting. All right, I just stepped back in for the audio real quick. I'm going to be heading out.
Yeah, fair enough, Jeremiah. It's late. We did a couple yesterday or the past couple days and whatnot, my friend. Thank you for joining. Or did you have something to share, go over before you take off? Any final words?
I guess if I was recording and transmitting at the same time, I could do that, but I'm probably just going to record and upload the video to my channel like last time. I'll be doing the extended test of Mike's cell. That little Jewel Thief worked perfectly the first time. I mean, it's hard for it not to. It's about the simplest circuit that you can imagine, right? One transistor, one resistor, one inductor, and a freaking LED with some voltage source. So yeah, it kicks on real nicely at 0.3 volts, and I'll be putting that cell under some load, seeing how long it runs, checking capacity. Well, it's moist, putting it inside of a bag so that everything condenses, not losing any moisture, and then we'll see how long it takes for the magnesium to finally crap out. Just in a practical sense, you know, as an emergency battery. We'll see how long it takes. But again, during the test, I'll also be setting it on a scale. And it will be trapped in a bag to capture all the moisture. So
awesome. It's make sure, right? And Hutchinson and his wife Nancy, when they were asked about their crystal batteries, they were explaining that it's very, very important to have it sealed, sealed, but pressure-wise as well, right? So it's you're keeping temperature, but all the forces out. It's essentially the same as like a vacuum tube within.
Well, I should clarify with Hutchinson's crystal cell battery, that Bernie, with his crystal cell battery, pressure is what refers to the electrode pressure down on the rock. It's not about internal air pressure or atmospheric pressure. It's about how much force you're putting down and how deep that electrode is digging in, more importantly than anything else, because he uses these larger crystals. So if you go into onto Nancy's stuff, where you're talking about electrode inside of electrode poured crystal cells, where you have a poured crystal electrolyte that starts out as a kind of goopy gelatinous liquid and then gets poured in, that's a different scenario. But again, you don't want to really be losing water vapor or moisture, and as it evaporates, as it starts to bubble out of that system, it's going to build up pressure if you just let it leave. So you have to have some way to keep it inside the system, and if you have a pressurized cell or one that doesn't lose pressure, you're going to keep everything contained inside and just let the magnesium do its reaction. So two things to consider, but pressure doesn't necessarily mean pressure inside the cell. It's one of the options to keep the water trapped. But as long as you do keep it trapped, then you keep that reaction going. Otherwise, if it's a dry cell, pressure refers to the pressure against the electrode of the crystal.
Gotcha. Oh, thank you, iHeart Fairy. She just posted your in the live chat for everyone. So is it that channel?
Man, I've got to head out of here, but I'd say, you know, if you got stuff to share, keep the stream going, share with your audience. You know,
always, my friend.
All right, man. I'm out of here. I'm going to watch your stream on YouTube.
Have a good one. All right, I got some of the science of sound. Works. Well, are we? There we go. I don't know what the F is going on. We're having technical difficulties, so I'm just gonna end her here, guys. Thank you for joining in. It was a pleasure. We will be doing another one very soon. So love you all. Catch you on the next one. Yeah, sorry. Gonna be trying to set up some better computer setups here so there's no buffering and freezing and technical difficulties on the next one. All donations help. Looking a job on Tuesday, but everything helps. And bye. Probably catch me on the next one on Alien Scientist channel. Sadly, don't expect us to be on autodidactic anytime soon, as well, apparently too many flat Earth subscribers that we're no longer welcome there. So, but Paul Cook, myself, Rex Bear on Leak Project, March 29th. It will be filmed, so be coming out probably the 30th or later in the afternoon on the 29th. Until then, guys, much